Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to give you a quick preview or review or primer on the reading from Thomas Aquinas this week. So, after reading Plato, I want you to read Thomas Aquinas. And what he's talking about is his view of government. And the selection is titled The Just Ruler. So, I want to give you some context, like I did last time. So, we have now moved forward over 1,000 years from our last reading, which was Plato, and Plato talking about the state and the laws, kind of in a democratic context. Thomas Aquinas is living and writing in the 13th century, and it's a very different context. He, remember, is a monk. He's a philosopher and a theologian. Remember, he's enamored of Aristotle. He likes Aristotelian ideas. He's trying to reconcile Aristotle's philosophies with his own theological religious beliefs. So in the Middle Ages, we need to remember the history and the historical context of the Middle Ages, that this is a period of monarchy. And so monarchy is the norm. Whereas today, I think we feel a little bit more comfortable with what was going on in ancient Greece because it was more consistent with our values of this kind of social contract and democracy. So that's the exception at this time, and frankly, throughout most of human history, not the rule. So today, our context is obviously different than the Middle Ages. And in the Middle Ages, what Aquinas is going to be arguing for, as we'll see in a few minutes, with a single just ruler, a monarchy, was not out of context at the time. So that's important to keep in mind as you are reading him. His contemporary audience would have been more receptive to this maybe than a modern democratic audience. Okay, so as you read, he's going to start with these questions, right? Why do we need a government? Is going to be his first question, and he's going to suggest, and he's not going to be the only one to do this. We'll see this again during the Enlightenment with philosophers like Locke and Thomas Hobbes, that humans are not well evolved to survive on their own. So humans are vulnerable as individuals. They're better together. They survive because of their communal capacity. And our rational capacity, our thinking ability, gives us the opportunity to protect ourselves. It's really, really simple, Aquinas thinks, that we have to work together for our own survival. He talks about how ill-equipped we are to protect ourselves. We don't have big claws. We don't have thick, scaly skin. We don't have horns. We don't have natural defenses. What we have is a mind. What we have is a rational capacity. And that's how we work together to protect ourselves. So we have to do this. But he recognizes that when we do that, there are some potential problems because we are individuals and we're forming a group and we have personal interests and we have the common good of the group. And this should remind you of our discussions about ethics and morality. How do we balance those two, our personal interests versus the group interest? All right. So he's recognizing that those are going to be issues, those are going to be problems. So Aquinas, as I mentioned, is going to defend monarchy. And again, totally within his context, that would not have been a surprise. So why a monarchy? Well, he thinks that a strong ruler is going to be best able of keeping order. And I think we see this, right? So in a democracy, you can have a lot of disorder. That in a democracy, we have traded some of the benefits of a single strong ruler for the benefits of a democracy. So we believe, I think, that a democracy is more likely to protect our freedom, but maybe at the expense of efficiency, maybe at the expense of some security. And Aquinas is looking at it from the other perspectives and says, look, the best thing that we can do is have a single strong ruler to keep order and keep the ship running, right, as a group. And he says, additionally, if you look at nature, this is kind of how nature is set up. It's full of examples of hierarchy. There are all of these natural hierarchies. Why would humans be any different? Why would we not have a hierarchy? It's obviously there's flaws with hierarchies. Obviously, there are bad kings, but that doesn't mean that monarchy itself is bad. And finally, as he is wont to do, he will argue that this is God's way, that when he looks at the church, he sees a hierarchy, right, with God at the highest position, that God is the just king of all of creation, right? And he says that then, therefore, is kind of the model that humans should follow. And you may have heard of this, like divine right of kings, right? Like that there's this divine right for certain individuals to be rulers. Um, but before you think that he's going to be okay with any old person becoming king, he kind of near the end of the reading suggests that that is not okay. Not any ruler will do. The ruler must be just and cannot put themselves and their self-interest above the group and the group interests. Right. So while this is an ideal, it very rarely is the actuality. It's very rarely the case for a lot of reasons, right? We could talk about why, people who end up in positions of power or authoritarians, just the personality that will allow you to do that often will lead to you putting your own self-interest. You got to do that to get there. So once you're there, why are you going to stop? But Aquinas is not okay with that. So do not think that Aquinas is defending tyrants. He is not. What he is defending is this structure, that he thinks that this is an appropriate structure for a society, because that's what we're talking about, authority in the state. All right. So after you read the intro and watch this lecture, or all of the above, summarize the selection in your own words. These are your responses for the discussion board. And make sure that you understand what type of government Aquinas is advocating and what are the limits of the ruler's authority, right? So what is he not able to do, and what limits? Why are there limits? If they're the supreme authority, if they're the monarch, why don't they get to decide what the limits of their authority are? All right, then move into criticism. What do you think about his conclusion? Do you agree or disagree with his reasoning? And explain your criticism there for question 3. And then finally, question 4, how do most people in our society today feel about this type of ruler, a monarch, and why do we feel that way? What are the drawbacks that we see in a monarchical system? So why don't we have monarchs? Why do we not, at least in our modern American context, advocate for powerful authoritarian rulers? What are the drawbacks to that? On the flip side of that, what are the benefits? I think we are living in a time where we could see, hey, if decisions could be made a little bit more quickly, if we could just kind of have a plan and stick with it, if we could, make a decision, there would be some benefit to that as well. So I want you to address all of this in your discussion board response. Okay. I've enjoyed reading your discussion board responses. Remember, I'm kind of staggering them through the week. I'd like you to get the first one done by Tuesday night and the second one done by Thursday night. And then every other week, obviously, you'll be turning in an OEL on Friday. And I've created those due dates to try and give some structure to your week. If you don't hit that deadline, it's not the end of the world. Turn it in as soon as you can after that. It's just going to make it harder for me to keep track of stuff. I'm not going to ding you points. I just want you to do these things. I want you to be thinking about and writing about these ideas. Okay, so Wednesday from 1 o'clock to 1:50 p.m. we'll be holding an optional seminar. If you'd like to come and talk more about these 2 readings, you are welcome to do that. I hope that some people do. And that's all I have for you today. All right, so keep fighting the good fight. Stay healthy, stay indoors, and I hope I see you again soon.